In today's episode, please welcome Walt Disney Studio's 1993-2014 creative consultant Mariusz Arno Jaworowský.
So, hello. My name is Mariusz Jaworowski. I am from Poland. All my life I have been working in dubbing. I have finished English department in Poznań, which had back then the best English department in Poland. And then I was also in the US in Berkeley at the university. Both my parents, you're asking about this, were professors, and they were heads of institutes. My mother was a paleontologist, and very famous one for that matter. Now they are making films about her, both in the US and in Poland, and 2 books have been published. And my father was an atomic scientist dealing with with radiation safety. So he was very crucial during the Chernobyl explosion. And since my very early age in primary school, they were teaching me English. They were sending me to their friends abroad since I was 10, I believe. So every summer I have spent outside of Poland in an English or French-speaking country. So good job they did, I would say. When and how have I got into dubbing? All right. So, as I said, my parents were scientists. So, in theory, I should go into biology or some other kind of studies. But I was super lazy, and English I knew. So, in the middle of the last year in high school, I have decided to study English department. At school, they were laughing at me because I was so lazy and I had issues with Polish and stuff. But I got there and I started translation of books very early, already at the first year of the university. But the good thing is, for me, that aunt of one of my friends was the head of the chief editor in the only dubbing studio in Poland. And she has shown me the studio. And she knew me, basically. She knew what kind of person I am, how creative I am with dialogue, what kind of dialogue I use. And she said that she will hire me, but we had to wait for someone to retire. So I was working for them as a freelance. Then they hired me. Then I was writing things, and the first big film that I wrote was the last Hitchcock's film called Family Plot, and she was checking everybody's script, and she checked my script. I still have it in one of the cabinets there, and it's all red. Everything was wrong. Yeah, because we think when we finish universities that we are fantastic, we know we are the best writers, everybody is bad, they don't know how to write. Yeah, except that no one at the university has really taught you how to write film language. And film language is something super specific. It's very different from literature. It doesn't use grammar as we should be using. So you can have a very stiff language in a dubbing, which does not relate to the young audience, which is using very different language. So I started that using the new type of dialogue, and she was enhancing me to do it further, to be braver, with the show called The Muppet Show back then. So this was, for me and for everybody else, an eye-opener that you can go that far with dialogue. And this is how it evolved later. Based on my directives, we were teaching people in Disney to write this way. And it really went very, very far. And I wasn't trying to implement that in the countries where I used to work. I started in 1983 or 4 as a translator. And I worked as a translator for several years. But then in 1992 or 1, Disney has come to Poland, and they needed, in the studio, there was one studio, they needed someone to take care of their dubbing. and I was helping them. And then this was with Beauty and the Beast.
Бен!
Добрий день. Повертаю книжку, яку я брала.
Вже прочитали?
Ой, я читала з запоєм. А є щось нове?
Ще не з'явилося.
Це не страшно. Хай буде оця.
Оця? Ви цю двічі читали?
Це ж моя улюблена. Дальні краї, двобої на мечах, закляття, перевдягнений принц.
Якщо ви так її любите, я вам її дарую.
Але ж я...
Та беріть!
Спасибі. Щиро дякую вам.
And then with Aladdin, I have been hired by DCVI. DCVI is Disney Character Voices International. It means voices of the characters, people in the film. This organization has been established many years ago. I have joined it in 93. It was run by Jeff Miller from the production point of view, and Blake Todd as our creative head. Blake Todd has worked with everybody in Disney for ages. He was older than us. He's not working. He's retired now and lives in Palm Springs. He was like a god. He looked like Gregory Peck, was super nice, knew everything, total specialist. I met Blake in 1991 when he came, I think, with Jeff Miller to Warsaw to start dubbing of the TV series which were sold to the Polish state TV. And we went to the TV station and in the studio. And why was I handling this? Because I was the only person speaking English in the studio. So I was the point person. Also on the creative side, I was the point person taking care of the voice test and so on. Then we had Beauty and the Beast, which I handled for them. And it was in 1992. Most likely they were here as well. They were also looking to hire someone, and he came with Jeff here to look at this if I can be hired. And then I was hired in 93 to start real work with Aladdin. And when we started Aladdin, I spent about a few months, I think, with Blake on the road. We had the base established in Prague, and we were going from Prague to the whole Eastern Europe. So I knew him quite well. And the main thing is that I was learning from him. I was a translator back then, but he was teaching me how to approach the voices, the characters, what to look for, what is important, how not to get fooled by some little trait in the voice. But also I think that this is the main thing with Blake was that he has taught me to cooperate fully with the local teams and to listen to them, because not everything that we think is correct. Maybe our conception about the local situation is wrong, and maybe a voice that is good for us is for some reason not good there. So he taught me how to deal with the local people, how to be part of their teams and not some tyrant that was telling them what to do. And this was his approach, cooperation. That was his main thing. Advice, cooperation, and help. This is him. So until recently, because people pass away, but until recently, when you were somewhere in Eastern Europe and you mentioned his Blake, people were saying, "Oh, Mr. Blake," and so because he had enormous charisma and people simply loved him. He never alienated anyone, and he was super delicate and diplomatic, ideal for this position. He also had an unbelievable talent for the voices to how to analyze the voices that were sent to him, to his office. They were sent in the form of audio tapes, of cassettes, and this was before digital, and they were listening to the voices. Then we were calling them, and he was telling us what is good with the voice or what is bad with the voice. So, for example, there was the film Rescuers Down Under, and there was a character of albatross, a bird, a big bird. And here in Poland, we sent a test for the voice. It was a guy who was, yes, big like the bird, but he had a heavy voice, heavy voice. And Blake told me that, hey, this is a bird with a voice like this. He will not fly. It's like lead. You cannot do this.
Jestem Bianka.
Panna Bianka! Panna Bianka! Nie do wiary. Brat mi o pani opowiadał, wie pani, Orville. Co za zaszczyt. Witam panią gorąco w moim domu. Mogę?
Chodzi nam o lot czarterowy.
No to dobrze trafiłeś, stary. Właśnie tu. Witają was linie Albatros. Niską stawkę mam za lot, tu i tam kapujecie. To znaczy, że niby mało płacisz, ale wrócisz. To taki żart, nieważne.
Always there was some sort of remark that was directing you in the right direction and helping you. And the remarks were clear and helpful. So I think this is what was really, really good. In these early times, in the 90s, Disney was trying to evolve the dubbing of Disney projects in the whole world. And in order to ensure that the quality is level, similar everywhere, they were asking to have the voices that are identical to the English. And this, in the early stages, was very difficult. So we, for example, had super big difficulties with casting the vocal for Lion King, or we did some roles, half of the role with someone that we thought would be good, and then we sent him this role to Blake, and he said that it cannot work, so, because for some reason. And so we changed it, and usually it was, not usually, always he was right. He was our safety valve. If we were unsure of something, we could even play some voice over the phone to him, and he would tell us what to do. Is it a good idea or a bad idea? So we had total trust in Blake, which was great. And so the main characters was this diplomatic approach to everything and total professionalism, and never a bad comment, always. But on the other hand, he trusted us, or he learned to trust us when he has seen that we are going the good way. But it took some time. It's no question about it. We all made mistakes, and because our casting methods in Europe were a little different than their ideas of identity of the voices. So we were looking for, let's say, if somebody had a big nose, so we were casting someone with a big nose, and so on. So the voices had to fit the face, but the energy sometimes was different. And here we were trying to be very close to the original, which was a good idea. And it has slowly evolved into a method that, yes, it is identical, but it is a little different. But this difference doesn't make any problem with the voice. And this is because he was trusting us more and more and more and delegating more work to us. So, yes, and this was the best time when he was active and was working with us. It was the fantastic times of Disney Character Voices International. He was the cement that kept the group really together. So this was my first contact with Disney Character Voices, and this experience, this first traveling, has shown me how each country is different in the approach to dubbing. And this was my biggest gain in working for DCVI, because I was able to gather experiences of multiple regions. I basically had 18 countries under my supervision, the whole post-Soviet bloc, and plus Greece, Turkey, and Israel outside of this bloc. So this was extremely interesting. Now, when you're asking when DCVI was founded, I'm not sure, but it has to be said that the way Disney works and worked has been established in 1938 by Walt Disney, when they have done 9 versions of Snow White, including Polish.
Кажу, вітаю вас.
Вітаєш із чим?
О, ви говорите. Я така рада. Не кажіть, хто ви. Я вгадаю. Знаю, ти мудрик.
Так, я мудрик.
А ти, мабуть, тихоня.
О, так.
А ти? Ти Санько.
Угадала.
А ти?
Гав.
Ти апчхик. Еге ж. А ти, напевно...
Я веселун, так. А оце роззява. Він не розмовляє.
Не може розмовляти?
Невідомо, не пробував.
О, а ти буркотун, мабуть?
Так.
Хто ми, відомо. Спитай, хто вона. Що вона тут робить?
Так. Що ти, хто тут робиш? Що ти? То ти хто, дорогенька?
Ой, пробачайте, я Білосніжка.
Білосніжка?
Принцеса?
Так.
And you're asking at some point about creative letter. So let's go there here now, because creative letter is called creative letter because back then for the Snow White, they were sending letters with information about the film. So this is why the creative letter is called creative letter. And they have invented with Snow White the process of casting, of asking for information about what are the names of let's say the gnomes in the Snow White, why they are called like this. I have a letter from the supervisor of the Polish version who explains exactly why Polish names are so and so, and he explains this in English. So basically, this is the process that is applied today, has been there since 1938. It has changed a bit. Now you don't send the voice tests on magnetic tape by train to the seaport and by ship to New York, and from New York by train to Los Angeles, but you do it by computer. So very often I approve voices basically the second they are recorded, because I'm being sent, or I listen to the voices. And if you have experience, you know that voice is good or bad immediately. I mean, yes, sometimes you approve someone and the studio comes back to you and says, you know, would be better to have someone else because of that and that and that. And if we trust the studio, we often go with these voices because there is nothing better than the local experience. If they know what Disney or another producer expects. Because at the beginning, in 1992, we thought we knew what Disney expected, and it was not true, because we were looking for different things in voices. The casting in Europe was done differently than Disney wanted. They were not looking especially for the color of the voice or energy, rather for the facial characteristics. For example, if someone is fat, then it's good to cast someone who is fatter because then the neck resonates differently and you hear that someone is super thin or super fat for that matter. So next question is, could you formulate Disney dubbing standards? Yeah, that's interesting. In the beginning, when I was hired, there was one directive. Do it well. It has to be good. So we were doing everything we could to make it superb, but back then, our experience was not that huge. So today, many of the films that we have been doing at the beginning, we would most likely cast a lot of different people for these roles. We were relying too much on the dubbing directors who were back then coming from a different era, from the beginnings of dubbing. So their ideas of dubbing were different. The ideas of text were different. I am the advocate of adapting the script very far, like you have in Cars in Ukrainian version, because it gives you the local color. Of course, you cannot go too far with that, but it has to be super creative. The text is not układka only. Układka is something that was used as the golden standard years ago when everybody was recording together. So if you have 5 people recording together and one person is out of sync, then you can imagine the bad energy that happens during the recording. So the dubbing directors required super synced text. However, this super synced text is very often artificial. And we have to remember that editing of dialogue back then was very limited. You could only move fragments of tape with everyone. And today, when everybody is recorded separately, you can change whatever you want in a given sentence. So the writers have more flexibility to generate better script than they had back then. And this has changed in the last 30, 40 years. When Pro Tools came, I mean, before Pro Tools, there were some other computer systems that were designed to record the dialogue, but Pro Tools prevailed and it's the standard right now. And it is a very good tool to edit, and you can have 5 recordings of the same sentence and then take one word from here, one from there, do a little puzzle with that, and it works very well. You were asking whether I change a lot of dialogue. Yes, a lot, simply because people do not understand the film language, then they learn, but initially they don't understand it, and it's stiff and it's not creative. They don't understand that lip sync is not only the main thing. The main thing is the emotional sync, the context of the scene, which has to be the same as the original. If there is a laugh track, which means the laughter in the mix, then the point has to be at the same point in the film so that the laughter is where it should be, and so on and so forth. So yes, we did change a lot of script in Cars.
Це Валера.
We are doing this dub later than the Ukrainian dub of Cars. We are doing later than the others because this decision has been made later, thanks to our distributor and the president of the country back then. They came up with the idea that things should be dubbed into Ukrainian, which I think is fantastic, simply. And this first dub was something that was super exceptional. This cannot be repeated anywhere because this was, I would say, national project. Everybody wanted to be in this film. This is why you're asking about Stupka. Yes, everybody wanted to be there. So we had Sumskaya and Stupka and everybody we wanted whom we thought would be good for the film was opened. Yes, I want to be part of this. And this was unbelievable energy. And this version is simply fantastic. You're asking whether there were issues with this dubbing. Yes, there were issues. The main issue was that the slang was based on the Russian slang, and we wanted to avoid this. So there were things that were created by the actors and the director, invented. And one of the biggest inventors in that version was Yura Kovalenko, who was Buksyrnik. And he, for example, invented the name Valera. C'est Valera! And it's a hit, in my opinion. It's fantastic. And he has tremendous sense of humor. And he toured the country, Ukraine, and he knew how people speak, and he was bringing to us a lot. I'm really grateful. Great guy. All right, let's continue. You are asking if recording people separately, not together, is not good for the quality. No, it is. It doesn't matter. Because it's the responsibility of the director to know what you want from each sentence. Then, if there is some gap in dialogue and the people do not converse with each other in two sentences, then you ask someone back to re-record. So it works very well. And they must be recorded separately because of the new technology of Dolby, first stereo, then Dolby Surround, now Atmos. So if you record everybody together and people go two separate ways, you would have to choose which way all the voices go. And they may go in that direction. So if you have the panning of the dialogue, then they can go this way, they can even surround you, right? So this is why everything has to be recorded separately. But it's also better for the sync. It's faster recording because you go not in a linear way, but you jump from a fragment to fragment to fragment. It's very efficient. And today, the cost of recording is super important. Yes, things have changed a lot, mainly because of technology, mainly because of finance and speed of recording. Because today you have the so-called day and date openings of the film, which means that in the whole world, the films open at the same time. So there are cases when you record the film, for example, Pirates of the Caribbean, where you don't have the final version, the effects are not created, and you have people with dots on their body, and the faces will be put on later. This is like, at first we thought it's like asking for trouble, because how can you know what the expression of the face will be? Luckily, I have not heard of major issues with this type of recording. No trouble has happened.
Нехай безплідна, і радість до неї хай не заходить. Хай проклянуть її всі, здатні й готові розбудитися. Ла Кракена!
You're asking also about the safety measures, which is the so-called rotoscope. Then you only see the face of the character and you don't see the rest, or it's blurred. And this forces writers to write very generic script, which means that it has to be dialogue, which will not be specific, for example, about color or the type of weapon that someone is using, because this can be sword or a spear or a dagger or scepter or something else. So you have to be careful what you write if you don't see what is there. Now, as probably people know, one of the huge studios had a safety breach, and about 80,000 episodes were stolen. So these safety measures are put in place so that, for example, Star Wars film is not stolen, and this kind of material is unusable simply for the pirates. It's a different world, and we have to understand this, and we have to adapt to this. Its safety means huge money. If someone steals it, it's unbelievable hit for the producer of the film, right? The film is super costly. It can cost $200 million or more. And if it's stolen, then you can imagine what it means. It's disaster simply. How is the dubbing project cost formed? It's cost, all right, you can have a dubbing with stars and you can have a dubbing without stars. So you have two costs. One is the basic cost. It's based on estimated time that you will spend in the studio, the number of lines, the number of actors, and you have specialists in the studio, the production people, who can very well establish how much it will cost, how much time it will take. Sometimes it takes more time, especially on difficult or very important projects. And then there is cost of stars. And this, who knows how they will ask, how much they will ask. They can go for the sky if they want to, right? So it's difficult. Now, then you're asking why Ukrainian dub is cheaper than French. Everything is different in every country. These things cannot be compared. You cannot say, why are we paid less than in Germany or France, or like here in Poland? Can we say that, why are we paid less? They are different countries. These dubs make different money. In France, dubbing of a film makes unbelievable money in the cinemas. And the guy who wrote Finding Nemo in France apparently has bought a house next to Paris from the royalties from that film. So every country is different, not comparable. The systems of dubbing are not comparable. You can try to implement new ones, but the main thing is that the cost depends on the economy of the country. And there is nothing we can do about this. These prices can maybe gradually grow if there are unions, like in Poland, they have established a union and prices gradually grow. But how can they grow if there is no work today? There is very little work. Studios have invested huge money in this, but it came out that streaming is not bringing a lot of money to the owners of the streaming. So when there was this strike in LA, this was like, wow, thank you. We don't have to produce films. So now there is a lot of people who are jobless. Yes, the work is coming back, but still. So in Poland, where they want more money, it doesn't really work very well because there is not so much work. There are various issues. It's not simple. It's not black and white. And one cannot say, I want that and it'll happen. It won't. Good. Why some films are dubbed and some are not? It also depends on the country. In Poland, only children films are dubbed for the cinema. Yes, now the Marvel is being dubbed and films of that type. We made this experiment with Iron Man. It came out that it's very good. It brings more people into cinema.
Jestem Iron Manem.
We have to remember that younger people don't read that well because they are constantly in the phone, and the subtitles are quite fast, and maybe they cannot read that. It may be uncomfortable, or they lose the meaning of the film if it's only in subtitles. So yes, but the good dubbing is not very far away from the original film. You have to simply cast it well. You have to be super careful when you record, to be very meticulous about little things in the dialogue in the original. You have to listen to the original. There is this crime in dubbing that people record without listening to the original. And when you have headphones on and you speak, you don't really hear what's there. You can only hear whether it's louder or more angry or something like this. But you don't hear the small things. But it's a lot faster. And on cheap TV dubbing, it's basically a norm. It's a crime. Which language is hardest to dub, you ask? What is the reason? No. Every language is equally difficult or easy to dub. Why? Because we are not learning that language. These people have studied acting and writing in their own language. So what that we don't understand Finnish or Hungarian and that these are super difficult languages for us? Doesn't matter. For them, they are natural and they are in sync and they are artistic and they are very good. Doesn't matter. Every country has the same capability of delivering fantastic dub, provided that you try to do this very well. Now, is dubbing a job? You're asking for me, only a job? No, it's my passion. So I told you some time ago that I was being taught by my chief editor, that she was checking my scripts. So now I am teaching people, young people at universities. I don't take money for that because I have to pay the debt back. I want to find super talented people and bring them to this profession. We have to remember that the dubbing profession across the world is fairly old. People are not very young. It's not a mafia, but it's, they are constantly the same people who do these things. It's very difficult to bring younger writers or directors, even actors, into this business. But I try to do this. We also have classes at acting academies, and we bring young people. For example, we were doing BoJack Horseman in Poland.
Przysięgam, jeszcze jeden raz i jesteś trupem.
Słuchaj, wiesz, że ja nie jestem zły, tylko Fritz. Nie chciałem ci tego mówić, ale on wrócił. Sam nie wiem jak. Może wybuch jądrowy go w jakiś sposób wskrzesił. Pracujemy razem. Pomóż mi go złapać.
Jestem z policji, idioto. Jak powiedziałeś, że Fritz zabił twoją żonę, coś mi nie grało. Próbowałam go znaleźć w systemie, ale wyszło, że ktoś taki nie istnieje.
Co?
Właściwie to wyszło, że nigdy nie miałeś żadnego partnera.
Co sugerujesz?
So apart from few roles of older characters, everybody were young students from our classes, and it gives you freshness. Same as Taczki in Ukraine, super fresh. The less dubbing is in a country, the better the dubbing is, basically, because there is no industry. People don't get ruined by working too much, and they are not only after the speed. Who offered me the task of control? Nah. It doesn't work like this. I just had the territory of everything. This whole part of Europe was mine. And basically when the Ukrainian dubbing appeared, it was for me to take it. You were asking for how long I was staying for the dub. It has changed. Originally, I would go for 2 or 3 weeks for dubs. But this is when there were fewer dubs. When I started working, there was one Disney dub of theatrical per year. For example, Lion King.
Повторюй за мною. Акуна матата.
Що?
Hakuna Matata, тобто без турбот.
Акуна матата. Пречудові слова.
Hakuna Matata. Не на день чи два.
Нехай ніколи не болить голова. без турбот живи і кайфови. Акуна матата.
Акуна матата?
Так, це наше правило.
Яке таке правило?
Просте, щоб нічого не парило.
Знаєш що? Ці два слова вирішують усі проблеми.
Точняк. От Пумба, наприклад. Увага! Він був молодий кабан.
Я був молодий кабан.
Просто клас.
Дякую.
And there was no competition. There were very, very few animated films produced apart from Disney. Yes, there were some films produced from the popular TV series Flintstones or something else, but they were no competition. And so the first version of Lion King I have received in September. It was on VHS and it was made of storyboard pictures. It was not moving, but the dialogue was there. And every month we were getting a version that was better and better and better and better. So we had time, a lot of time, to think about this film. Even if you don't think, you think. Things come up in your mind. And this was a fantastic way to work. Today, we get the film and we have a month to deliver. And the film is produced for 4 years, animated film. Pixar film is being written for 2 years and drawn for 2 years. And we have a week to write it, a week to record, or 2 weeks, and then mix, and you have to deliver. So there are mistakes that happen. These are compromises. You are asking somewhere whether we have made casting or creative mistakes. Yes, we have. Very colorful mistake that we have made is in Ratatouille. In Ratatouille, there is a scene where Remy gets out into the alley where there are deliveries, and he meets his rat friends. And the biggest rat is talking to him, and this biggest rat is like 3 times the size of the other rats, and he has an earring. And we knew nothing about this guy, and we thought that he's just, patsan. And we recorded him a little bit this way, which had no effect on the scene or anything, but it was not true to the original film.
Гей! Здоров, братику! Ми боялися, що ти більше тут не з'явишся.
Привіт, Ремі! Як воно?
Здоров! Ти їм розказав? Емілю, я ж наказував не потякати.
Ну, ти ж їх знаєш. Це мої друзі, я й сказав тільки їм. Слухай, пробач.
Ти не переді мною вибачайся, а перед ними.
У вас тут що, якісь проблеми?
Ні, жодних. Заждіть.
After the film was released, we went to Pixar for the conference, and we were walking in the Pixar building, and at some place there was a huge storyboard, a huge board like this, with this guy, about this guy. It's a minor character who says 2 sentences, but his story was there. His whole life was there, who were his parents, and so on. And I found out from that he was so big because he was a very nice, timid laboratory rat who was fed some things to get bigger. So he should be very nice. And we made him like this. So there are things like that you have to be really careful for. You have to watch out. For example, the film Tarzan. It was not done in Ukrainian, I believe. There is the bad character called Clayton.
Жінки. Всі однакові. Дякую, Джонс. Ти програв би навіть, якби не виріс дикуном. До жіночого серця немає стежок.
And Clayton has been drawn as an aggressive guy. He has gone all the time. He is a bad person, and so on and so forth. And we started recording him according to the picture to make him aggressive. And we created a monster. So we went back and we listened more carefully to the dialogue of this character. And he was not talking in a way like this. He was talking in a regular way. Just the picture more aggressive. And together, it created a persona, right? So you have to be careful because it's very easy to change the meaning of a scene. For example, in Polish version of Little Prince, there is a scene, this live action version, which means acting, right, with actor. There is a scene where he's being accepted into school, and it's a dark room, and there are these people sitting there in the committee, and they made these people not boring accountant type, but they made them monsters, and it changes the whole scene. And this is a crime.
Przejrzeliśmy twoje podanie. Dobrze?
Dziękuję.
Przejrzeliśmy twoje świadectwa.
Dziękuję.
Czytaliśmy twój esej Przemieniająca siła zera, radości z nicości oraz ciąg dalszy. Zero mnie nie zagięło. Dobrze wykonałaś pracę. Wszystko wygląda jak należy. Zadamy ci dziś tylko jedno pytanie.
Wielkie pytanie. Czy nadajesz się do Akademii Wert?
Kim chcesz być, kiedy dorośniesz?
You have to be really careful. You have to listen. But the fact that you listen doesn't mean that you know what you are listening to. This is why experienced helper like me can teach people in the studios how to deal with the things, what to listen to, how to work this, and then they can do it on their own. So yes, I was coming for 3 weeks, but then because of the super amount of work, it was shortened, and then we were going for a week, more or less. So the minor characters were recorded, and we were coming, for example, for the biggest roles. Also, if you have 18 countries and everything has to be done in a month window or 2-month window, you cannot squeeze it in. So you have to make choices. Where you go, where you don't go, what you listen online. Casting for Cars. This was like a regular casting, except that we were looking for big names only, basically. So this was the difference. And the fact that someone is a big name doesn't mean that he can do the role. So if someone was not fitting for one role, you can always try for another. And so that you don't lose or offend these people, right? Because we had a case of a famous actress in Poland who was always coming for tests and she never got the role for some reason. Doesn't mean that she's bad, but she was not a good choice. And finally, we found the role for her, but she was already offended and didn't want to come for the testing. At the end, she did, and she got the role, and the version is like this. But it's very easy to make casting mistakes because you hear something in the voice that it's not really there. It's all illusion. So you have to learn how to evaluate the original so that the version is more interesting and true to the original. Am I happy with Cars? Yes, I'm super happy. Why was Russian studio Neva involved? All right. This was a new thing, theatrical dubbing and we wanted to get the best possible thing. So I have employed Neva with their specialists in editing, in recording, because it's a different knowledge how to do these things. And they were very helpful. But it was not sustainable. It could not stay like this. This is not a normal situation that you ask another country to come and do things in your country, right? Of course, there are international studios like Dubbing Brothers who are French, but have studios everywhere, right? But this was not this case. They were very helpful initially, it has to be said. They did very good job. But finally, Le Doyen was established, and it was a fantastic studio with fantastic people, because they moved from one place to another. And this was, I was so happy that it happened, that this studio was built. Fantastic concept, good for the workers, with a cafe where they can eat and entertain themselves and take a rest. Very, very good idea to build this, and fantastic mixing studios. The head of the studio is, I mean, unbelievable woman, Alina, who has basically, I would say, got everything that I was saying. She can be a person like me easily. Very, very good person. And I have to say that the people that they have employed in general were super talented. The team, the production, the sound engineers, very, very, very good people. So thank you for this. The studio was built by our distributor. Fantastic. I don't know. Disney was not trying to dub into Ukrainian before 2006. That is, sometime in the 90s, we came to Kiev because the customs officials in Russia were making huge problems with the prints of the films. And we decided to make prints inside the country. And we came to Dovzhenko to look at their film-making facility. This is where, by the way, Ledoyen was, right? But finally, the prints were done differently. But this is when we were told by our back then distributor from Yekaterinburg Art it was called, that there is this studio in Petersburg, this Neva Film. And we went there from Kiev, and this is how we met, and this is how finally they came to Kiev to do this. Yes, I said that you are asking about the Valera. You see, the Valera is a hit. You're asking how it came. It's Yura Kovalenko who did this. And what I think about localizing jokes and names, jokes, of course, because if you translate jokes directly, no one will understand or laugh. Jokes are embedded into the country. Also, they are sometimes based on people that live there or things that have happened very soon. So you have to invent jokes. You have to write them from scratch. There is a joke, you see what it is more or less about, but you have to construct a totally new one. And there are people who are very good at it, and there are people who are not that good at it. Names, all depends on the situation. You cannot basically rename people in a normal live action film, let's say, that happens in court. You cannot give them in New York Ukrainian names, right? But when you have nicknames in pirates or names in cars, of course, you have to do this. What you will have Mater in Ukrainian or any other language doesn't work. It has to be Buksernik or something like that. Hold on a second. As far as I know, major studio or foreign film demand the casting. The casting. They demand 3. I am of the opinion that please send me 1. If it's good, I want just the one that you want to use. It's better. If you send 3, quite often, the supervisor can choose the wrong one because the director wants this particular actor here. But then he's asked for 3. So he brings people who are not as good for the other 2 tests. Very often like this. So, and then somebody chooses the person number 3 and they don't like it. So they come back to you. And if you think, you say, yes, please take this guy that you suggest. But it's not always like this. There is a legend that the voice tests are downloaded to a computer program. This is not true. This is all done by ears and experience. Experienced people, not always experienced, not everywhere, but experienced people listen and approve. And very often they help. They approve and they say, but please do this and this and this. So at first, I was sending my voices and the voices from my territory to Blake Todd, who was my boss in LA. But then I was given the power to approve these voices myself in the territory. So and when you have a responsibility, you have to be super careful because you are making that choice. So this is important, that you have to be good, you have to trust yourself, and you also have to make decisions that have finally that result like cars. Now, it may happen that the chosen voice is wrong. We had this case in Polish Lightning McQueen. We choose a guy, he was approved. We have recorded half of the film, and we had to stop recording and change the guy because we made a decision wrong. He was a good guy, but somehow he did not fit the character. So the replacement was very good. However, he did the main role in Guardians of the Galaxy, and it was fantastic. So it all depends. Not everyone can do everything. So the ideas that are coming from many places that if this guy was cast as Robert De Niro when Robert De Niro was 18, then he has to do the Robert De Niro even now, except that this guy is 20 years older than De Niro, for example. So this assigning actors to actors is not good because maybe this actor like De Niro or someone else can do thousands voices, like Mel Blanc can do the whole Bugs Bunny, right? So are we going to use one actor for Polish or Ukrainian Bugs Bunny and he will do 100 voices and will not be recognizable? I don't think so, right? So everything has to be adapted to a territory and the systems that work in that territory. You are asking about using women for children. It's done in cheap dubbing. You should not use it. If you can use children, always use children because you want truth. But there are some projects which are not based on reality or the voices are in the original, something happens. Then you may use voices that are from some point of view, these voices are not good, they are not artistic, but maybe they are good for the project. It can also happen. Maybe a good artistic dubbing will kill this, let's call it stupid project, right? That is made with voices that are totally artificial. But maybe that's the style of the original. So always listen to the original. What are the principles according to which should be dubbed? Whether the film is dubbed or not is a decision of the local distributor who is doing this according to the local customs. There are countries where everything is dubbed. There are countries where only children projects are dubbed, let's say Scandinavia. So it all depends. You are asking whether you can tell person's height, weight, age by voice. You can tell weight and age. You just have to know the local voices. That's very important. You cannot be a good dubbing director and not go to theaters, not watch local production in film. You have to know most of your country actors because otherwise you are repetitive. You will have a group of 50 actors who will be always doing everything. And it's super bad. But there are places like this. There are countries where a group of actors is linked with the studio and they don't go to other studios to dub. This is crazy, but it is. It happens. Qualities of ideal dubbing actor. He has to be a good actor, right? What is an ideal dubbing actor? What is it? The person who works fast and does not listen to the original, but is super fast and does a version that looks more or less okay? Is it good dubbing actor? Or is it a good dubbing actor who spends more time but gives you a fantastic role? Right? There are different categories of good dubber. Either fast, artistic, maybe a combination. Legends are that directors Spielberg, Nolan, Cruise were choosing dubbing voices personally. Yeah, there were maybe a few cases, but people don't have time for that. And they don't also understand the international. They don't. And if they start watching your versions, not necessarily they will be happy, although everybody is happy, because only now has dubbing come to America with streaming, where you have foreign productions. And you can watch the American dubbing and see what it is. Take, for example, the series Lupin, French, and go from English to French like this. In Netflix, it'll take you 10 seconds back, so you'll listen to the same sentence and see what's the difference in major character, in Omar Sy, how different he is in French, where he has depth, and you hear a person there. And in English, it's bland, it's nothing.
T'es en avance?
Je t'avais dit, j'ai changé.
Raoul, c'est papa! Il est pas en retard?
Ah, super, merci la confiance.
Oula, je te demande pas ce que t'as fait de ta nuit?
Franchement, rien de spécial.
Rien de spécial.
Non, tranquille.
Bien sûr.
Ah!
Ça va mieux, hein?
Merci.
You're early?
I told you. I've changed.
Raoul, your dad showed up.
Isn't late? Real nice. Thanks for the confidence.
So, want to tell me what you did last night?
It wasn't nothing much.
Wasn't nothing much.
It was low key.
I'm sure. Better, yeah?
Yeah, better.
So it's very interesting to see what is happening across the ocean, because they are now only building this business, and it's not sure that this will prevail. Maybe not. Maybe people will want to see subtitles only. Does involving media person? Yeah, makes sense. Yes and no. Whether to hire influencers, in my opinion, is a marketing driven decision. It's not good because they don't know how to work. We did have once a case where a famous Polish singer was forced on us to dub a character because he had the same name. So there were about 20 sentences to dub, and they were like this length. He was so bad that we had to make it half length, and we spent a whole day recording this, and then our lovely marketing never used him in marketing. Or you can have an idea like the French marketing wanted to use French football team for all the gnomes in Snow White. Luckily, it did not happen. But if you have cars and there is a car race, so if you take someone from television who is always commenting on Formula One and you tell him not to read your script, but to comment on what he sees, then it can be very interesting. It's added value. Or you can ask them to rewrite the script so that it's more interesting. We have used one famous Polish football commentator to comment on one of the, I don't remember, was it one of the cars or in planes? And we told him to really go crazy, like he's always going, and create, he's always using language that does not exist and it's funny and so on, to really go creative. Fantastic. But just to use someone because he's famous for nothing, it's idiotic. In theory, these people can later say on their Instagram or TikTok, oh, I was in that film, and you have 150,000 followers or 1 million. And maybe more viewers will go, maybe. But if you hire these people, you have to be careful in which roles to place them so they don't destroy the film. What's the difference between dubbing, animation, and live action? The animation is more difficult and easier. Live action is more difficult and easier. It's more difficult, live action, because you have real faces with very specific emotions. And you have to be, someone does something with his eye and you can hear it. You have to be really careful. So, and lip sync is also a little less lenient, I would say. Animation, on the other hand, there is a lot of characters that are more colorful. So you have to cast people who are colorful in their acting. So there are similarities and there are differences. I would say that doing films like Guardians is more difficult than doing an animation without vocals. Are there films that can be dubbed? Yeah, probably yes. Films like the French old film called which was about Neanderthals and they didn't speak but emitted sounds. So you don't touch it. Mix studios. There are companies that use centralized mixing. You are asking why the mixes cannot be done in-house in the studio in Ukraine, for example, for Disney. Because Disney is doing this, it's called centralized mixing. One version is done super carefully with biggest specialists in sound in the world. And then next versions are done according to this model with... It still takes 4 days to mix a foreign version, even if you have this automated model, because every voice is different and you have to change things. But it's a good solution to do it, because you get to know the film better when you do it. So it's more efficient, and you don't have time to do the mix locally and then QC it, which means check it and then go back to the studio, say, do this, this, and this, and this, and then again. So it's better to have it centralized. Yes, have been any cases in my career when distributors pressed their propositions you strongly opposed? Of course. We were doing Finding Nemo in Poland, and our distributor said, coś nieśmieszny ten błazenek. Błazenek is this genius of the fish, of Nemo. He said, so it's not funny, that fish. So they have forced on us ad agency copywriters to make fun in every sentence. Although this film is not about being funny, it's not a cabaret, right? It's scary. Yes, there are things that are funny, right? But it doesn't work like this in this film.
Wstawaj! Wstawaj, tato!
Mamo, nie chcę do szkoły, gardło mnie boli.
Nie ty, tato, ja! Wstawaj, wstawaj do szkoły!
Słońce, po co?
Do szkoły, do szkoły!
No dobra,
Szybko,
już czas do szkoły. Nemo!
Pierwszy dzień szkoły!
No nie ruszaj się, czekaj! W życiu sam nie wyleziesz, wyciągnę cię! Zraniłeś się?
Co?
Skaleczyłeś?
Nie.
Czasem się nie czuję w pierwszej chwili, ale potem zaczynasz szczypać. Szczypie cię?
Nie.
Słabo ci?
Nie.
Ile ja mam pasków?
Nic mi nie jest!
Ile ja mam pasków?
3.
No, widzisz, coś z tobą nie tak, bo ja mam 1, 2, 3, tylko... No nic, jak nasza płetwa.
And we were forced to do this. So I didn't go there. I told my 2 people to go there and agree to one change. Because you have to agree to something so that you're not regarded as, oh, yeah, he just opposed everything, right? And we saved the film. But it's easy to destroy if you are giving up to things like this. We had for the Atlantis, we had a writer who did Shrek. And with Atlantis, he wrote it in the same way, that everything is funny, and we had to change a lot of stuff. Have you ever used quotations from works of literature in dubbing? Yes, constantly. However, However, now, this time in history, it's not a good idea, I think, because the young generation does not read and they don't know these things that everybody knew before. So we have a different type of viewer. So you have to write different things. But in Ratatouille, Russian, I remember, we have used Rami is sniffing food if it's good. And he says, and it was my idea, мимолетное мгновение невероятной чистоты. So we do things like this.
Да-да, проверять, не отравлена ли еда.
Чисто.
Чистая красота. Как мимолетное видение, как гений чистой красоты. Неважно, ладно.
You are asking about the four main dubbing directors, Konstantin Linartovich, Olha Fokina, Ivan Marchenko, Anna Pashchenko. I worked with all of them. Everybody had different methods, different sensitivities, different ideas, different methods of getting to actor. Basically, they were most happy if I fell asleep in the studio. But I liked working with all of them. And they were, I mean, truly very, very, very different. Yes, dubbing directing is sphere where quite a lot of women work. Yeah. It's changing. It's changing. But it was so. It was mainly women profession. Why? I have no idea why. I didn't analyze this. Security issues, you ask. We were speaking about, rotoscope. But there are cases that now with this big case of leaking materials, it can get even worse. There are films that the writers are asked to write the films in the studio without their phone present in the little room. It's really scary. But it has to be understood that majority of problems are not happening in dubbing studios, or they are never happening in dubbing studios. They happen in Los Angeles somewhere, with coming from marketing departments or from, as we see, from one of the big dubbing studios. It's very interesting how different that we have issues with this. Yes, you can have actors who will make pictures of themselves in front of the screen with the film behind, which is forbidden. Then they put it on Facebook. Yeah, but this is not scary, right? It's not allowing pirates to make big bucks. Coronavirus was very interesting. Studios were working. There were some instances of doing remote dubs on remote facilities. People were recording from home, but it's not as good as being in the studio. There are technical issues, but it is possible. It has to be said that it is possible. Now that we don't travel that much, because the other thing that happened are the budgets that are a lot lower than there used to be. So we now watch the films that are dubbed or series that are dubbed immediately after they are ready at home, if you have good setup at home, and you watch it as if you were watching this in the studio. So it happens like this, that things are done remote, let's say remote control. It's that. Yeah, you are asking if this can be done. It is done. But sitting on a recording and monitoring recording remotely, it is possible. I have done one English dubbing from here in the US. The time zone is a killer. But it's better if you do it with people that you know, because then you can rely on these people. And if you don't know anyone, you cannot question everything. You cannot say that everything is bad. You have finally to approve something. So it's a huge compromise. So yes. strange. Can you please talk about the following projects? Casting, peculiarities, issues, decisions, strange decisions. All right, so we have films. Up. Up was fantastic film, but the best part of Up was that we had 2 old men in main roles. And usually we have cast super stars of old times for that. And the pleasure of working with these people who are not spoiled by today times, this was one of the best experiences we all had in the studio with this film. Fantastic, simply.
To zwykłe nieporozumienie. Nawet moje psy czasem się mylą.
Zaraz, czy pan Charles Mans?
No cóż, tak.
Wielki Charles Mans?
Czas wyruszyć w nieznane.
To naprawdę pan! No, to jest Charles Mans!
Ojeju! A kto to Charles Mans?
To on! Jestem Karl Fredricksen. Żona i ja wielbiliśmy pana nad życie.
No, znaczy ma pan dobry gust? Pewnieście zdrożeni. Głodny?
Aha.
Wall-E, very interesting. Wall-E had voices which have been created by Ben Burt. Ben Burt is a specialist who creates voices. Everybody knows his voices that he has created artificially. In Star Wars, there are these little people, desert people, who speak Rotini, things like this, you remember? So these are his voices. He is a specialist in making voices. So we met him before we were recording Wall-E, and we asked him, tell us how you did this. And he did not, because it's his secret. And Wall-E was a voice there were hundreds of layers of changes. So there was no way we could go back there. So we have created our own algorithm to get similar voice. We have also made a running, how was this done? An English original dialogue, I think we made. This was some time ago. And we had a model to which we could record without change, so that we then were able to change it.
Директива. Секретно. Ім'я. Волі. 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 Єва. 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 Єва.
Brave. Brave is interesting because Brave is a Pixar film that looks like a Disney film. And at the same time, Disney did Wreck-It Ralph, which was like a Pixar film. This is because John Lasseter, the head of Pixar, became the head of animation in Disney as well.
Колись було собі давнє королівство.
До чого це?
У королівстві почалися війни і розбрат, і настала руїна.
О, ми всі чули цю казку 300 разів.
Так, але все це було. Я знаю, як один зухвалий вчинок може змінити долю королівства.
Ай, це просто легенда.
Легенди – це уроки. Вони дихають правдою. Ми юне королівство. Наша історія ще не легенда. Але вона встигла нас поєднати. Наші клани були ворожими. Та коли з-за моря посунули хижі чужинці, ви об'єдналися і захистили наш край. Ви стояли один за одного, ризикували заради кожного. Лорде Макгафін, тато спинив стрілу, що летіла у вас, коли ви рятували Дінгвола.
Так, і я цього не забуду.
А ви, лорде Макінтош, ви врятували тата, коли кинулися на важку кінноту і стримали її. І хто не знає, як лорд Дінгвол прорвав ворожі лави?
Щосили метнувши списа!
Я стілив у тебе, лоборяка!
Історія наших кланів – це шлях перемог. Мій тато зумів вас об'єднати, і ви зробили його королем. Вас усіх згуртувала ваша сміливість і ваша дружба. І це триває донині.
Then Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians were a pleasure to work. Difficult film. Difficult because every character was so colorful. The dialogue was very good. And we are using parts of this in training. It's very good. The initial scene where they are looking at Agora and commenting on the characters. This is several minutes of funny dialogue. You need to cast it fantastically.
Зандарійці. Збіговисько криворуких нездар. Тільки вміють, що одне загубити, а друге поламати. Отак і живуть. Позориська. О, заціни! Це чмо вбиває народ своєю зачіскою, а злочинцями кличуть нас. А це що таке? Воно думає, воно круте. Долю з маком. Ходити навчись, відьмо. І подивися на цього пана посміхунчика. Іди до своєї баби, дідугане. Отже ж рафінований збочинець.
Then we have Alice in Wonderland, Tim Burton. This is one of the better films. And we have, I don't know, 10 translations of the book. And we thought, I'm talking about Poland. We thought, which one will we use? So, but this was way before the film was even recorded. So we asked for the screenplay to see what is there so that we can use that. And the screenplay was super interesting because there was nothing else but dialogue. There was no didascalia around it. So he has invented everything later visually, right? And it's very moving, this picture. It's I love this picture. There is this poem in Alice, Jabberwocky, which has been translated by many people because it's a fantastic, let's say, exercise in philology, right, in language. But these translations had no meaning. And when Mad Hatter is walking with Alice next to the burnt wood, he's saying this poem, and it has a lot of meaning. It explains what has happened. So we rewrote it, and it's the first version of that poem that has any real meaning.
Uniu śniało, już knagdgi wława w dom śnirdwy dwała plętką tęć. Pro kwiaty jej przyłba brogłowa, kędy paputa rary kępć.
Jak? Co to miał być?
To, co ma być. Żar żaber złoczych jara ślip i kąśli pysk kułaczy garść. Więc żaber zwłoka ty się strzeż, niech cię nie zdypie pandzier chlast. On raźno turpi koncerz zniósł i grdykę sztychnął ciachu ciach. Tak stworę ściął, jej głowę wziął i wrócił do dom w spak. To o tobie, dziewczynko.
Nikogo ani niczego nie zgładzę. Ja nie gładzę. Nawet o tym nie myśl.
Yeah, Lone Ranger. Yeah, Lone Ranger. It's a live-action film, cowboy movie, right? There is, as an example, there is one scene where they get into the bank, they try to rob the bank, he's in the mask, and someone says, "What's up with the mask?" But he says it in a way that it's funny. And in Poland, we have recorded that, I don't know, with 5-6 different actors, because no one was getting it funny, right? This is how it sometimes works, that even the smallest element can create something important for the film.
Леді та джентльмени, ми з колегою маємо намір зняти готівку. Я знаю, що цей банк застраховано, тож... Нікому не рухатись.
Що за дурна маска?
Я ж казав тобі, що всі будуть сміятись.
Monsters University, yeah. All right, we did have one thing that is interesting. there is a scene where the whole stadium is singing. Today, all these massive scenes are done with 6 people and they multiply. But what we have done, we have gone to the university and we have recorded this chanting in the biggest auditorium with about 300 people. And this gives you space, this gives you quality, this gives you energy. And basically, similar thing we did with Hunchback of Notre Dame, where we have used the whole Philharmonic choir to record the vocals. Today, no one would pay for this. There would be 5 singers who would repeat. It's a very different quality level. Now, Monsters University is not a good film. There is, in Pixar, every film is like real live action, scary film where the characters are in danger, in real danger. So the film that we should talk about here is Monsters. Monsters, Inc.
Ти мій кумир, ти крутий, ти найкрутіший.
Я в чудовій формі, Майкі! О, клас!
Молодець! Калю наступні двері!
Ти відстаєш, Ренделе? Може підлаштувати вхідний клапан?
Наступні двері давай!
Двері! Зараз будуть!
This is one of the best ideas ever. To create this world that exists behind a door, you get into this other world. And the characters are unbelievable, simply. So well built, so well written, so difficult to translate. And this is where you could use adaptation and quotations. There is this character called Roz. She's this ugly character that is running the company, and she's also running this, let's say, CIA organization that saves the whole thing at the end. And so we have written her dialogue in the style of the communist times, where they were talking to each other with comrade. So she's this kind of character.
Dzień dobry, rozślimaczku, ty mój najdorodniejszy. Kogo będziemy dziś straszyć?
Wazowski, nie wypełniliście wczoraj raportów?
Ach, te przeklęte obowiązki. Nie kusicie czasem, by wsiąść do pociągu byle jakiego?
Jeszcze raz i Kaukaz!
Jasne. Postaram się bardziej przykładać.
Mam was na oku, Wazowski. Nie folgujcie sobie. Nie folgujcie.
We gave her quotations from that time, because you have to understand that we are not writing the animation for the children. We are writing animation for everybody, so that the children can understand and see. If they don't understand, they ask. But the parents have also an experience that is fantastic, and they can have a huge entertainment. It's family entertainment. That's why it's called like this. This is, I would say that Monsters, Up, old ones, I have a lot of good memories with Aladdin. Good memories, funny memories. For example, we were recording in Slovakia. And the choirs and the dialogue, we were recording in the radio station. We were recording this on 24-track Studer tape, this thick, box like this, really heavy. And we had several boxes like this. And we have recorded the film. And this very moment, we were changing our distributor there, and we were afraid that they will keep their hands on the recordings. So we had smuggled them out at night and run away to Vienna and flew away. Yeah, funny.
Тож назустріч зіркам, чарівний, фантастичний, світ до себе нас кличе, відкриває барви нам. Неймовірна краса, і дива за дивами промайнуть перед нами. Ми у небі сам на сам, нове життя, нові незнані почуття. Тут жодних перепон, і це не сон. Моя здійснилась мрія. Нове життя.
So, creative letters. And what projects do you remember? You know, creative letters are needed if you don't understand some things, or you want to check the age of the original actor. This is super helpful to know who is the original, because very often they are names that we don't know, but they are very well known in the US because they are in TV shows that are not shown here or so. So it's good to get this information. Also, creative letters will tell you today what to dub, what not to dub if it comes to vocals. Vocals are sometimes not dubbed because you have no rights to dub them. In order to be able to translate a song that is a well-known song, you have to have the permission from the original author of the vocal. Because if you translate, and this is used, he's losing some money from the royalties. So the production will usually buy the rights very early or create vocals for the show. Look that in cars, the vocals, the country music vocals, rock vocals were not dubbed, right? Because you are not going to dub huge stars. Oh yes, you did it in Frozen, but it's a different story, right? You are asking why the titles are wrongly translated. Because titles are translated before anyone sees the film. Because you need the film title to promote the film way before you can see the film. So this is one of the reasons that it's not because people don't speak English, but because they see something and they have very little information and they create a title based on that information. For example, this Sting, old film with Paul Newman and Robert Redford, was literally translated as The Bee's Sting, which is a fantastic title, but it has nothing to do with the film. Yeah. So, which is the hardest project? Now, I would say that maybe hard projects were the early ones when we were all learning the new ways of dubbing for Disney. And then we were really, really careful, and some people were skeptical. We had to fight this, and so on and so forth. But I have to say that the energy back then in the studios, when we were coming with Disney to studios across Europe, Eastern Europe, perfect. Everybody loved it. It was good. Everybody was so talented. Fantastic. Really good work, I have to say. You're asking whether it's better to have a translator and lip sync adapter. No, it's better to have one person who does it, who knows English very well, who understands the realities. You can have Korean film. That's a different story. How many adapters know Korean, right? So then you go to the old way, that you have Korean, English, and then Polish, for example. Or you have a Korean translator in the country. But if you do a Netflix project or some other project, then you will get already the English translation, which will already make the text flatter. right? More generic, not as interesting. So the choice of adapters who are very good with English and understand and know how to look for things is better. One can think that today you can find anything. No, that's not true. Not everything is internet. Sometimes you have to reach into dictionaries that you have behind me and next to me here, behind that wall here, that I was always bringing when it was coming from the States. So I have really strange dictionaries of symbolism, phrasal verbs. I have the biggest Webster, which is this thick, but there is everything in it, which is not on the internet. Slang, yeah, you can go to Urban Dictionary, but will Urban Dictionary show you slang from the 1950s or 30s? Probably not. But if you have the dictionary, the old dictionaries, back then you had to buy slang dictionaries every 5 or 10 years because it was changing, right? Language is changing. So you have to be very careful not to use words or phrases that will disappear next year. We had a case in Aladdin Polish where there is Lotto, right? The games. And they had in 93 an ad that was saying miliard w sobotę, miliard w środę, miliard w sobotę. $1 billion on Wednesday, $1 billion on Saturday, which we thought we will use in Aladdin when he's flying out of the cave full of gold. So we have called Lotto people and asked them, can we use it? And they say, you will have to pay us. So we didn't use it. A month passed and they say, no, you can use it now. And we said, no, we already recorded and mixed the film. Luckily, because 2 years later, no one knew what this was, right? So you have to be very careful because our dubs have long legs. That means they live long. The Snow White dub from pre-38 is still there. Of course, it has been redone because of technical reasons for the cinemas, but things live very, very long. So we have to really try to do the best we can because it survives. It will survive us. It will live longer than we. Have you ever dubbed a part as an actor? Of course, I try to do it always, but mind you, I do only small things, right? Because I am not a trained actor. And it's not easy to do a serious acting role if you're not a trained actor. This is why actors are used and not people from the street. First of all, look, my voice is already tired. I feel it right here because I don't have a trained voice. I can do things at a whim, right? Have an idea, create a voice, things like this. But this can be done for one sentence. In Hercules in Russia, Słoneczny Rolex interesuje. Or in Nemo, Finding Nemo, I did all the seagulls at the sea, right?
Zamkniecie wreszcie te dzioby! Szczury w piórach!
Dostał w kość, ale szuka swego chłopaka Nemo. Nemo? No, jego porwał jakiś nurek i ten błazenek to jego ojciec!
Czekaj, powtórz to, coś mówiłeś o Nemo, co to było?
Mine. So in Polish it was die. Or in Hungarian it was mean. So I did it in several languages. But because I have a stupid voice, right? So if there is something small, but going behind the microphone shows you how difficult this work is and what our people in the studio, our actors, that we ask them to do so many things, how talented they have to be. And this is it. We are talking here throughout this whole thing, we are talking about using talent. Talent to write, talent to direct, talent to act, talent to organize this. Because dubbing is not just the recording. is the work before the recording, which is preparation. There is recording, and there is post-recording work. So it's a big thing. It's not just the work in the studio. The work in the studio is only part of it, super important. But the other parts, beginning and the end, are equally important. This cannot happen without it. So we have to understand that dubbing is not only the sexy part of acting, directing, and so on. There are other things around it, equally important. You are asking the problems of modern dubbing. Money, bum, bada, bum. Yeah, this is there. The money, the cost being cut, the TV dubbing getting cheaper and cheaper, hence worse and worse. This is the problem. Yeah, very difficult. And now the major studios in the US are having issues with streaming. So the issue of cost is very difficult. It's really a very interesting and dangerous period, because we also are, I will talk about artificial intelligence in a second, but first you are asking about the countries. Look, there are differences between recording in every country. Yes, they are. But the main core is more or less the same. But there are different ways of casting. There are different groups of actors. There are different ways of approaching talent, or different approach to star talent in the films. There are different ways of counting the work, how to pay people. So sometimes people per line. In some countries they pay per loop. Why do they pay per loop? Because in old times, the film in the dubbing studio was divided into loops. It was cut, there was made a loop like this, and it was going, and you recorded a scene, right? So this still prevails, like Germany, for example, or Hungary. Yeah, there's Israel, Turkey, Greece, Poland, Romania, Hungary, Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Serbia, Croatia, Slovenia, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. Ukraine is not here. Russia's not here. Basically, it was Turkey is here. Yes. Which country I loved the most to work with? I would say, depending on the periods, but it all depends on the studio. So I had, in my opinion, good relationship with the studio in Kiev, fantastic relationship with Greece, Hungary. Yes, I think that these are, and Romania. But Romania depended on the dubbing director, but the studio is owned by fantastic people in Romania. So yes, Turkey, I stopped working in Turkey because there was a death threat towards me. So this was very interesting. The dubbing producer profession has almost died. Producer, you mean supervisor? Possibly. Why? I think that because the studios have learned a lot, that they are a lot more self-sufficient, that come on, it's 40 years ago that we started traveling and working together. So if these people were open to getting knowledge and implementing it, they are fantastic, So, and plus, I mean, going for 2 weeks anywhere and stay in a hotel, it's a lot of money. It costs. So there are many things why this is possible right now. Does dubbing have an enemy? Yeah, there are countries where people don't like dubbing, or there are groups that don't like dubbing. Like everywhere, like everything. Artificial intelligence, is it a problem? Yes, it is a problem. There are companies, many companies, that are working on it. And it's very advanced, very advanced. It's in sync. It doesn't have a lot of emotions, but you can edit emotions in it. But at the moment, there is a graph, quality, price, and it has 3 bulbs in it. On top, quality and price the highest, is human dubbing. Let's say human dub of monsters. Then, in the middle is artificial intelligence helped by humans. So it's half quality, half price. And then you have artificial intelligence, which you know from YouTube dubbing, that you see some short content dubbed by AI in YouTube. So it's low quality. Now, where are we? We are in a very peculiar spot because at the moment, to generate good dubbing by artificial intelligence would be as costly as human because it will require a lot of work. Now, artificial intelligence, will it eliminate translators? No. If the local people understand that we are not dealing with just a translation, but we are dealing with rewriting the script, adaptation. Sync, yes, it can do sync, but can it do creative? Can it do these mimolotne mgnawienie niewiarygodnej czystoty? Not yet, at least not yet. So what is the future? I think it will come and the studios will slowly start disappearing and maybe only luxurious projects, cinema projects will remain. But when this will happen, it's very difficult to say because it may happen very soon. It can or not. Because if there is a company that is doing subtitles, and they are slowly eliminating the translators and they are creating editors of machine translation text. And they are telling the translators that you have to work fast and do not care about the creative quality of the dubbing. If it's understood, it's fine. So correct only interpunctuation, the commas, question marks, and grammar. So imagine what it means. So, but why they are doing this? Because they have to save money. If you have to change currently in their machine translation column, if you have to change everything, then how much time do you have to spend? More than translating this yourself. So it's super dangerous for the business. There are legal reasons. European Union is fighting with this. France, Germany are very strong about that. But there are already cases in Germany that are dubbed by, not very important, right, things, but are dubbed by artificial intelligence. Yes, it is a very, very interesting point of time, and this can change. And remember, this is key, that who is our, in dubbing, who is our client? Is it for the translator, let's say? Is it the dubbing studio? Is it the distributor? Or is it the creator of the film? It's creator of the film, your main client. You work for him through these two units, right? But how they affect the studio? You may think, oh, I have to work faster because studio is forcing me to do this. Can you oppose this? No, because they pay you. So you still have to be true to the original maker and try to do whatever you can, but your money is going down a little bit. There have been no raises in God knows how long. It's very money-oriented business. Global studios are running it. It's not, studios are not the bad thing. I don't know if there is anything that is bad. It's simply the economic reality that is affecting everything. This is not, a mission to educate children by our programs, right? We have to deliver content to the streaming or to the cinemas. We have to make it as good as possible, but it still has to be financially viable for the producer of the content, right? It's a business, and it's very difficult. So we'll see where it'll go. What do you do at this stage of your career? I'm still working. I'm working for Zoo Digital. It's a studio. I run the same territory that I did in Disney. Very nice people, very nice studio. Happy to be there. Yeah, so yes, everybody is thinking about the changes, the artificial intelligence. This is something that everybody is looking into. And there will be a new profession, and the new profession will be something a little bit like my profession, except that it'll be at home. So you will get a film done by artificial intelligence. And your role will be to quickly change the script on site, on the interface. Then look at casting, see if you like the casting or not, make these decisions, then approve it. Maybe use the cloned voices, maybe use other voices that are in the bank, doesn't matter. But evaluate this. You have to be fairly fast with this. And then you have to look at what we've been saying, at the emotions of this recording. And also, the interface has to be intuitive, so to speak, so that it's easy to do things that you want to achieve. But how to teach these people? Because you need people who will have fantastic grasp of colloquial, your target language, your language, English or other language, right? Then be able to evaluate the acting and voices. So this is a combo that is not that easy to find. And yes, there are, but maybe they will have to be taught. And it's not just Europe, it's the whole world, right? It's Asia. How many countries there that all do dubbing? So everywhere you will need new type of specialist. But it's just thinking what will happen, we will see. It was fun working with everybody in these countries and moving from one to another, meeting different people, different slightly approach, asking them to do something sometimes against themselves in order to get better results. Working with the biggest names in the countries. This was fun. With quality, with talent, meeting talented people. It has no price. So, thank you. And good luck to all of you.